And I always will tell people, I am not going to assure you the best because I can give you the best. I'm not going to always give you anything like next to perfection because I can't do it. I'm not perfect. I can't give you anything perfect. So for me, I'll do the imperfect, right? And you help me through criticism to make it better. So he said to me, the process there, having to melt that is what's through hitting. So you have to go through hardship before you get to somewhere you are. So success is not automatic. That you cannot also value success if you don't go through the hardship. My mother was like, you can't be in school, to the extent that, you know, she had to put me through this data system, but I would never be in data. And I remember instances where I had to cross over from my house to the primary school in Bakau Primary School just to be spending the entire day under the window outside just to hear the teacher, teaching in the classroom. Because I remember once over time, I went to my mom, you know, and we were chatting, and she said to me, Lamin, you know, I always hear you when they beat you early in the morning, when you cry, when they beat you early, and then, you know, but I couldn't do anything. And before she finished what she was saying, she cried that, well, you said you want to have education, but I can't afford you education. Criticism is part and parcel of life. You can't make it if you are not being criticized.
20 years of his extensive work and experience with the media and within the civil society fraternity. Mr. Lamin Fatty, the National Coordinator of the Child Protection Alliance, a child rights and welfare part-time lecturer at the University of the Gambia, in this insightful interview navigates through his childhood journey and why it's important to concentrate on your goals and live within your comfort zone for a peaceful and fulfilling life for yourself and your loved ones.
There's a quote that I have, and it says, if you do not share who you are, people will expect you to be who they want you to be. Who are you?
Well, basically, I think I'm not of an extraordinary person. I'm just a person who strive so hard to be someone in the future, the present and the future. So basically, yes, you said I'm Lamin Fatty. Currently, I'm for about 41 years of age. Right. I've done so many things to be where I am today. I'm more like a child protection activist that I am known for, having spent some time in the media, and I live a life in the country.
But when you say you've done so many things, can you take us through what are some of those things that you could remember?
Well, I think professionally, this is about 21 years now that I've had some extensive experience. Having worked within the media fraternity, having worked for Observer newspaper from 2003 to 2007, and have served under different capacities to the level of deputy production manager before I resigned. But also too, I think I'm somehow fortunate to always have two employment opportunities at a go. I started working with Nova Scotia Gambia Association with Daily Observer in the same year, the same date, in 2003, 1st July. And then also too, after 6 months with the Nova Scotia Gambia Association, I had my first, after my probation period, and then I was appointed, again promoted to be an assistant to a regional coordinator, of which also to have served also different capacities, ranging from being assistant to a regional coordinator almost in all the regions in the country. I've also worked with NSCA, Nova Scotia Gambia Association, for 15 years before then took over the leadership of Standard newspaper as managing director from 2015 to 2016, of which again I have to resign. Again, I then pick up another appointment with the Daily Observer newspaper to do marketing and business consultancy for them, of which at the time also to the Child Protection Alliance, we are then looking for a program officer, and I applied. Then became successful for the position of a program officer. So from 2016 to 2017, 2018, I've worked as a program officer with the Child Protection Alliance. Then 2018 towards 2019, my then predecessor, who is now a Human Rights Commissioner, the National Human Rights Commission, was then appointed as a commissioner. Then I was appointed as an interim national coordinator for the Child Protection Alliance, after which 3 months down the line I had to apply for the position of national coordinator. From 2018 to date, I have served as the national coordinator of the Child Protection Alliance. But again, also too, between 2016-17, I was then approached by another newspaper outlet, which is the Voice newspaper, that I think I was needed to help revive the paper. Then I took up that leadership again as managing director of the Voice newspaper, and having to change the landscape of the newspaper from 3 times a week to daily, from black and white to color. Currently, I am also lecturing at the University of the Gambia as a part-time lecturer, where I lecture on child rights, laws and welfare at the School of Science and School of Medicine and Allied Health Sciences in Banjul. So this is a little bit about me in terms of my experience. I know at one point too, having studied banking and finance from the Management Development Institute around 2010-2011, I initiated a company called Senior Cleansing Services, which then had also, I tried to manage and operate it within few or 1 year down the line. But because of my busy schedule within my work and also to having to go to further my education within the university, I could not sustain it. So I had to kind of like, let me just pause it for the moment before I get back to the business arena. Because I always live on one thing, that which position you ever find yourself, if you can ask the question after this position, especially on appointment, where next, and you cannot answer that, you don't still call yourself as someone who is qualified or who is successful. So for me, it's the only time, if I'm doing something, I need to get a backup plan. So you know what, when something goes bad, this is where I will fall on. So I have my business already in place, that when anything that happens with my employment, I say, you know what, go back to your business and have it revive.
Would you call, because you've mentioned success, and I find that really interesting. What would you say is your definition of success?
Well, basically, I think I have symbolized success as more like a gold, right? Because I remember my uncle, who contributed immensely in my life, once told me, if you want to symbolize success, you don't need to go further down, having to signify it with gold. And he said to me, if you are given a gold dust in your arm, in your palm, right, you looked at it, you will not value it, because you just take it as any ordinary sand, and you will not value it. But because of that kind of like a sand or dust given to you, it needs to be processed, in order to heat it and you melt it down before it becomes that kind of like a metal, that shiny metal that everybody wants to have in abundance. So he said to me, the process there, having to melt that, is what's through heating. So you have to go through hardship before you get to somewhere you are. So success is not automatic. That you cannot also value success if you don't go through the hardship. So hardship is one of that is a determinant to say, you know what, I have gone through this, and this is where experience is. So for me, you can't talk about being successful without having to reflect on the hard times.
Beautiful, I like that. Now, I am at this point curious to know, what hardship did you have to undergo to actually get to where you are? Because you look at the life of many or ordinary Gambians today, or people we look up to as successful. You look at where they are. Of course, yourself, you're a perfect example. Now, but you've mentioned hardship. So what were some of the hardship you had to undergo?
That's an interesting one, right? I think having to be brought up in a family that basically was trying to find it difficult to make ends meet. More like people will call it qualified poverty as humble background. But my definition, since a child, I was like, poverty is nothing other than a big social discomfort. Social discomfort in the sense that, the basic need as a child, growing up with a mother who is struggling to make sure that at the end of the day, she makes sure that everybody needs what she's supposed to have. And she could, the intention is to provide for everybody, but she could not. And then me being also to around having to have the ambition to be in school. My mother would never allow me to be in the conventional education setup because my dad had been an Islamic scholar, and they divorced when I was more like a baby. So because of that level of there was no male child. I was more like the first male child between them. So they feel like, you know what, Lamin, you're supposed to be someone who doesn't need to go to the Western education, because the moment you do that, you know, they believe the mentality that the moment you are into that education, you will be non-believer.
True.
Right. So I had a very difficult childhood because I had always had the passion that I want to be in school. My mother was like, you can't be in school, to the extent that, you know, she had to put me through this data system, but I would never be in data. And I remember instances where I had to cross over from my house to the primary school in Bakau Primary School, just to be spending the entire day under the window outside, just to hear the teacher, teaching in the classroom. But again, also too, I was fortunate because of I always want to be in school. So I had to go through the Aku families, where I started helping them, the Aku families, again to ensure that I am able to have some little bit of an education. But again, one thing that is more of a challenge to me is the fact that, yes, as much as I want to have education, it does not come ready-made. It comes with price. And the price I paid as a child was the fact that, yes, I wouldn't be a child who talked about, you know, having the basic needs that the child should be able to have, like any other person. That parental love and care was never forthcoming, because I remember once over a time, I went to my mom, you know, and we were chatting, and she said to me, Lamin, you know, I always hear you when they beat you early in the morning, when you cry, when they beat you early, and then, you know, but I couldn't do anything. And before she finished what she was saying, she cried that, well, you said you want to have education, but I can't afford your education. So when she cried for me, that should have been a breaking point for me. But I took that as a springboard to further buckle down, to say, you know what, Mom, and this was the question I asked her. I said to her, Mom, where are my relatives? Relatives. And he said, well, Lamin, you have a lot of them here. Some of your uncles are filthy rich. And she said to me, I remember during Kuko Sambasanyang, I will leave the house to make sure that at the end of the day, I cook and take food to them. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, there will be a time that they will want to know me, they will want to associate themselves with me, but I wouldn't give them the chance. Well, she laughed at me and said, you know what, Lamin, it's not how you think. But again, I never had the smooth transition to education. Having started going to school when I was at the age of 12. And basically no experience of having to go to kindergarten or nursery school. I started going to school in 1992 and I have to start from grade 3. Right, again, the environment that I was also to, it's not like you have a conducive environment where you could study, where you could do things, because I had to do a lot of domestic work. I have to do everything after school. So basically, that point in time, at that age, you wake up early in the morning, as early as 5:30 towards 6. You have to make sure that every person in that household is well taken care of you. They have warm water, and you make sure that you iron their clothes and everything. So the issue of what time do you have for yourself? I go to school and I will be sleeping in the classroom. But again, as time goes on, after grade 6, now transition to grade 7, towards grade 7 to grade 9 again. You know, 1996, I remember I was involved in a car accident when I was trying to celebrate the Ajamic Victory celebration on 26 September 1996. So I got knocked down by a vehicle and I had my leg broken in that accident. So about 6 months, I didn't also go to school. And this was a difficult moment. That having to, now, this was a period also too, I was not living with the Akus. Now I'm again back on the street. And this was the period that I had to see where I would spend the night. You know, I had spent several nights outside on the streets. I remember, you know, just by the opposite the primary school where you currently have Barros compound in Bakau.
Yeah.
There was a guy who repaired this old refrigerators. I used to sleep in old refrigerators to make sure that at the end of the day, when the place is cold, I'm able to move around. So you will realize that after my grade 9 even was so difficult for me to pay. I remember an instance where we were supposed to, I think it's about $325 at that time to pay for the examination fees. So they gave us the deadline, first, second, the last final one. I couldn't have any money to pay for my school fees, the examination fee. I had to go to the vice principal and I wept. I cried so severely that I could not afford not to do the exam, because if I failed to do that exam, that means the entire period which I had attended school would definitely be down the drain. And I remember going to someone who was helping, and he said to me, the vice principal called him and they had a discussion. And then I went to get the money, and he said to me, I don't want to know how much you have.
Wow.
What grades you have. So that automatically tells you, even if you have all distinction, don't come to me to kind of like support the education system. So yes, but I struggled. I went to grade 9, I had some very good grades. Unfortunately, I could not pursue. After grade 9 examination, with all this good grade I had to be again back on the street to see what I could do to get me so that I am able to go back to school. So I had worked as a laborers. Those who will go down there to help building contractors when they are building, renovating houses, which I have done. By then you were paid like $18 a day. And I remember the first contract we had was a story building. I will go like join them in the morning without no breakfast. Maybe the only thing we'll have is a lunch that is not sufficient for all of us. And again, that $18 that we supposed to be paid, that I was supposed to pay at the end of the contract, was never been paid. So then again, all this hardship that you want to go to school, you want to go to no one was helping. But again, what I was able to understand within that is the fact that, well, the other part of society, that society makes you to be aware that it's not about who you are, it's what about at the end of the day what you get. That none of your relatives or whoever wouldn't want to associate with you, because you are not just nobody, because you don't have the financial muscles. But again, also too, I was quite determined. So I was fortunate that the uncle that I lived with, he's late now. May his slow rest in perfect peace. He came for holiday and we had a discussion, and he said to me, Lamin, what are you doing actually? Before I even give a response, he was like, before you waste your time, sitting in booths, drinking attire, why don't you go do something to help your mother? And I looked at him and I said, Uncle, you see, I am a person who doesn't even drink attire. Aww. He looked at me with surprise, and I said, I don't even smoke, I don't even sit in booths. I have gone through all this, I have looked at for mega employment opportunity, but nothing is forthcoming. This is just grade 9 certificate. And he said to me, do you know for any person who you think we can talk to that will be able to help you, maybe if the person is outside? And I looked at him, I said, Uncle, do you want to help me? He said, yes. And I said to him, my life without education is nothing. So if you want to help me, for me, I think it's more like, just give me the opportunity to go back to school. Right. So when we discussed on that, the following morning I was asked to go get my certificate. Also, the agreement was, because we supposed to take him to President Awards, International Awards scheme, because one of my uncles was there, Mr. Abu Drame. Okay. So I opted for, let's put him so that he can get some skill, whatever technical skill that he could able to learn from that end. But when I brought my grade 9 certificate, he was like, no, Lamin cannot be in that place. Lamin will be there as a lecturer, not like a student. But also to having 2 years interval, the best thing they could do is to take me to ICE. Right, because ICE was basically to have opportunity for people to continue their education. So that's how I got to ICE. Thank God, I've done my bit when I was at high school, but again, it's never rosy. It's never rosy. I remember in 2000, when we had the inauguration of the fish landing in Bakau, the bridge, that was my harbor. That's where I spend the nights.
Really?
So I go to no one wants to accommodate me.
Why was it that you are spending the night there and not home?
Yeah, because at one point I have taken a vow with my mother, Right, since the time we had that conversation when she cried, I looked at her and I remember, there was this jumper thing that she bought for me. More like when she gave it to me, and I looked at her and said, "Look, yes, before it was me." And well, at one point she was somehow okay. She was doing her business. She was a bit successful, but at one point everything goes down the drain. But again, also that's also time also to she got married to another person, and then she was serving kind of like I had siblings in numbers. So I feel like, what, you've been in a room. We were living in a single room.
Oh.
Right? Sometimes people tell you a room and parlor.
Yeah.
For us, it's not a room and parlor. It was like a room and parlor, but this was converted to a bedroom, 2 bedrooms, we can call it. And when it rains, I remember most of the time when it rains. For us, when it's cloudy, when it's about to rain, it was not a moment of, how could we get into the house and enjoy the rain on this corrugated roof? No. It was, how do we secure our bed from not getting wet? So we had to get a pan on the bed not to get the bed wet. So again, I was like, what? I don't have to put more pressure on my mother. I want to be another person. But I was also fortunate that, I have the likes of Musa King, who is a military personnel currently at the Fajara Barracks, and I have Daniel, who were actually supporting in a way. And then Musa King used to have what we call Mam Jara, who is now late, who definitely made sure that at the end of the day, food would never be my problem. And again, also when it's about festivity period, Musa King will always get me something. Right? But I was more fortunate too when I get to know, Srif Bojan is my very good friend, Srif Bojan Senior, right, who now becomes more like an inspiration for me, because I will now leave my house, I will go to him, Srif will be giving me, Srif is the first person who will give a key to drive a vehicle.
Aww.
Right, so because then I started he even exposed me to go into working within the community on some of this community engagement. I remember Srif took me to Baikal in 2000, early 2000 or so. So having to get into those things, this is where I feel like, what, I need to create a path. But again, for me, life is not about what people determine. Nobody determines who I want to become. And I always tell my siblings, I determine who I want to be. And I can only determine who I want to be when I pursue education. Because I have gone to work as a laborist. And I always tell people, I am not somebody who will mess around with anybody who mixes the sand and the cement, because it's hard. It's a difficult labor. It's labor extensive. So basically, this is just a little about some of the challenges I have in life.
I was fortunate also to go through your Facebook page, and I was able to get few things that was written, and I felt it necessary to read it out. And this was posted in 2023. And there you say, life will certainly leave you with no option but to pursue those dreams and aspirations, risking everything to Europe with one goal: to make it in life. Efforts are being made on youth matters, but a lot more concrete actions are needed in changing the narrative in this country. Things are hard, and really hard. We might be just sitting on a time bomb. You've of course, the question that follows it, you've just highlighted, which is, what was the moment you felt you've hit a rock bottom? Which I don't know if there is another, or there are other moments apart from what you've narrated from your childhood that you may want to share also.
When I was going to my upper basic level, I struggled to transfer myself to Banyu, because actually I attended Crap Island, having to move from Bakau to Banyu. And I have always been a shy type of not asking for lifts. So I either had to struggle to make sure that if I have $1, most of the time I don't even remember at one go holding $5 at a go. And because I want to go to school, so if I have 50 budut, I know by then 25 budut is what will take me to Banyu. 25 budut is what will bring me back, right? So sometimes I go to school most of the time without breakfast. And You know, the only time then you will see me in the classroom trying to pretend as I'm doing an assignment is when it is time for break. But when everybody will able to have some little bit token amount of money to buy the bread and the beans, I can afford it. I don't have it. So I rather stay and pretend that I'm doing something, but I wasn't doing anything. I was starving. But yet I cannot go and start asking for people to give me that. But again, also to coming back home, is the issue, yes, you don't have proper breakfast. You don't even have breakfast, Maggie. But coming home, are you assured that you're going to have something of a meal that is, you know? So I actually live most of my upper basic level starting with starvation. And, you know, by then I remember, you know, we used to have this shopkeeper. Every night I had to go to him and ask for dry bread. And you call it, that's why still now I use sponsor. You know, I just will soak that and have it. And sometimes we have rice, I can soak rice with sugar to have something in my mouth. So again, what that taught me, and again, this has reflected in my present job, that you wouldn't be able to respect a person who is living in hunger until when you experience it. Right. So again, also it has given that level of being humble. But I cannot be pompous. Right. Having to go after one shop to another to have dry bread and soak it and eat it. Nothing changed your life, and nothing fancies you again anymore. So yes, there were moments that I feel like, you know what, I can take it.
Aww.
And you know, sometimes too, I remember at one point when my mother have to decide between me and my extended cousins, or my cousins, that some of them were actually living with me at one point, but because I was not working and they were able to give my mother one of $20, $50, I had a situation where my rights were so suppressed that I feel like I don't have a voice. But again too, the quote that you just read, having to say we are sitting on a timing bomb. You living in such a difficult moment at one point is how many would be able to condole what is happening. For when a man is between survival, he sees nothing other than survival.
Sure.
So if that particular person, in terms of survival, does not have the skill, does not have the knowledge, does not have any other means to survive, survival is not about opportunity cost. Survival must be. It's a priority that you must be able to have something to live on first. So if you have someone who doesn't have education, or have no skills, and the person is being neglected by society, the person will get means to survive. And the means to survive wouldn't be what? To come after us. Now you look at the level of criminality in this country. The person who goes and steals, the person who goes and beg on the street, there would be any person who tells you, I found pride in stealing, or I found pride in selling or begging. But if that person is been neglected out of everything, the person comes to survive on something. And nobody will tell you, I don't want to survive. That person that you have neglected, these children that you've been neglecting, at one point, they will be the future. Again, what future are you creating when you have not prepared for the future? So that's why I always tell people, well, it's a matter of being on a timing bomb, because you live in a country where a greater part of the population is of youth. But again, anytime you talk about the issue of youth empowerment, youth employment, you realize that the figures are not too impressive. Again, for me, it's not only about employment, but I'm talking about decent employment. How many employment do we have that is so decent that you think that Lamin Fatty would be in a comfort zone to say, you know what, I think I'm okay, I don't get into any other criminal act.
Another one that I've picked out, the best way to live in a country with high-level stressors is to concentrate on your goals and live within your comfort zone. Now, I find this conflicting because personally, I happen to find myself, if you like, encouraging my younger self to get off their comfort zone? Probably you may want to tell us what is your idea or understanding of comfort zone.
You know, comfort zones means for where you think that at the end of the day, you are able to have that level of peaceful environment to yourself, that stable mind to yourself, that you think that you want to get out of the social devices that put the stress on you. Because no matter whatever you want to do, what is more important is first, yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when you read the Maslow hierarchy of needs,
The needs, yeah.
what does it say? You need to look at your own security, your own psychological well-being before any other thing first. That's the foundation. And when you are in an environment where it becomes quite toxic, what do? Sometimes you don't expose yourself to toxic environment because at the end of the day, it breaks you down, right? But again, having to be in my comfort zone and my goals, remember, my goals at the end of the day is what I am doing, it's what I'm being paid for. That as much as, yes, I want to have my comfort zone when I close, but when I'm at work, I want to make sure that at the end of the day, every child in this country is being protected from exploitation or any form of abuse. That's what I give my best to. But after that, I don't want to get into, you are in the VU there, you are there, because the level of stress, as I said again, is how society is. And now the way society is coming, you see that people are not even tolerant anymore. You get into the traffic, the first thing you see, the moment you are on that highway, you start having stress on that element. I don't want to be on the traffic. I want to be in my comfort zone. So when I leave, I don't want to be jumping in people's house. No. When I go to work, I want to concentrate on the goals. And mind me, this goal will always be there, but not compromising actually my own well-being.
Live for yourself and your loved ones. Again, I believe this might be somewhat unorthodox, if you like, considering the society that we live in. Maybe you might want to take us through that bit. It must have some connotation with your upbringing as well, the fact that you felt your uncles were... Anything to do with that?
You see, society is no more how it used to be. Society is no more in how people appreciate what you have done for them. You can do 110 things for people, good things for people. One day they looked at you and said, you have done nothing for me.
Sure.
Everybody will say that to you except your loved one. I know for certain if I work so hard and give the best to my wife or give the best to my child, my child will never say that you have done nothing for me. So for me, it is better, yes, as much as you are considerate, that society, you cannot be independent from the realities. You give where you need to give, right? But you need to live for that child. For me, basically, anything I do for now, anything I do is for my child. And I'm so very proud when my child looked at me and said, Dad, and I remember just not long ago, we were driving and he said to me, Daddy, you are a very good father. And I said,
how old is he?
He's 7.
Aww.
And I said, how do you mean? And he was like, you make me proud. And I said, how? He said, when I do well in exam, you give me gift. And you take me around, you take me to QCD, you take me to places I want to go. And for me, that's what I want. I want to see my child to say, yes, as much as I never had those opportunities, I've never remember even celebrating a birthday. I think you remember, well, you people bought me my first birthday cake in 2015 in Standard.
At Standard.
So you and I have said this, that was the first time that I even think of celebrating a birthday. So that means all those things that you think you need to have as a child, it wasn't there. But because my parents would have loved to give it to me, but they never had it. So that's why I feel like, live for the loved ones. And, those that I feel like, but anyway, I think any loved one is somebody who give me consideration. For me, it's not about how much you give me, it's about how well you consider me as a person. But if you think that otherwise, you might not consider me as a person, I feel like, you're not a loved one, so I'm not bothered. And this also to inform that my life has never been evolved about how people perception about me. And this is very important, that I don't have to allow people to define who I am. And you said some statement similar to that. I define who I am. And I remember at one point when even I was going back to grade 10, some of my colleagues were like, Lamin Fatty is crazy. After 2 years out of the school system, let's see how he's going to make it in school. Oh. How he's going to make it in school. But I proved with time that, you know what, I came and I saw and I conquered. But so if you allow society to define you, you don't have a self-esteem. You don't have a sense of direction. So for me, my greatest strength is that this is the goal I want to achieve and I must pursue it. And over the years, I have never fallen short of my goals.
Beautiful.
I remember when I was a child, I used to write somewhere, success is my target. And it has always been my target. You know, no matter what you have in life, that element of happiness is the key to anything. And happiness is not by the definition of how much you have. Happiness is when you feel yourself. But when you are deprived of that, you feel so worthless. You know, I found myself in instances that I will sit and cry. And that's why you see the person that saved my life in a way, and I've never sat down with him. I've never even shook hand with him. It's Sean Sek. Right, there are his lyrics, some of his lyrics. When I listen to them up to date, I cry. Nothing is more painful than when you are deprived of that love, that you think that, you know, at least that happiness. You know what it means for somebody to look at you and I said, in the presence of people to look at you, you are nobody, I pick you from the gutters. Oh. So for me, happiness is everything. And that's why I always said that comfort zone is where I find my happiness. You know, struggle for me is normal in one's life. If you don't struggle, you don't value what you have. And for me, struggle have been my pillar to life. And struggle has defined how I associate myself with people. The people, they will tell you, those who know me too well, that currently I give out more of my resources to those that I think that they are deprived from having what they're supposed to have. And if you don't struggle, you are incomplete as a person. And if you don't struggle, you don't have history to tell. Today, perhaps, in our society, you might think, okay, you know, if Lamin should sit down here and talk about his struggle to where he is now, some people might think that you are showing off. No, but for me, it's an obligation that I could able to sit down with my child and said, you know, son, if I could afford this for you on the table, I never had it on the table as I'm giving it to you. So that sense of struggle, that sense of trying to also inform your children around how you struggle in life will definitely make sure that you have a world to live on. So struggle is, for me, struggle is everything one can do. Do not say, I've not struggled. And we know, we have seen people who will tell you, do you know how I struggled to get this? But again, we see people who never struggle and they are given the resources and they misuse our resources. So, one cannot do with life without making history. And you cannot make history when you cannot relate to your struggles. Well, I am feeling great. Great in the sense that I will always look up to the opportunity where I talk to younger generation, where I will always tell people, not whatever glitters is a gold. Again, I love the phrase to say, before you could make it in life, relate yourself to the gold dust. That the gold will never be that treasure, that so much value of an item if it is not processed through the heat. That heating moment in life needs to be something. So basically, I'm not too comfortable telling people what I have, but I am more comfortable telling people the journey we took, the journey of sleeping on the street, the journey of you making it through to where you are today. And one needs to be very proud to say, yes, thank God, few years down the line, this is about 22, 23 years down the line, this was a guy that we have seen sleeping on the beachside. This was a guy who he was coming to beg for dry bread to have something to eat. This was a guy who gets to the classroom and never had any money for lunch break. This is a guy who will walk almost 3/4 way from Banyan to Bakau, because he is the person who's shy to even beg for lift. When I was going to primary school, I never had proper shoe to wear. I had this shoe that is torn apart. So you know what they will do for me? Back then I was, boys thing. Being an adolescent, you feel like, there was a person you are so attracted to. But anytime I come out, you know what they do for me? They clap and sing for me.
Aww.
Dalabi pararam pararam.
Aww.
It was not fun to me. It was destroying me. It was killing me the inside. Because I can't afford it, but I need to go in school. So if you narrate all these things, I say, you know what? Don't narrate the story if you don't make history. I only hope you understand. Don't narrate the story if you don't make history.
And you can only make history when you struggle.
Thank you.
You said it.
Thank you. What I want to be remembered for is like what I live for. And for me, what I live for is nothing more, nothing less other than women and children, particularly children. To the extent that my passion for the welfare of children in this country does not see any element of being fair of anything. That I have gone to an extent to say the word fair is not in my dictionary when it comes to the issue of children. So I want to be remembered that I'm someone, not the best per se, but I do the best for children in this country. What matters in life, as I said, is not what matters to people. For me, what matters in life is what matters to me. But bearing in mind that whatever matters to me is to serve the well-being of society. And I always tell people that you cannot brag about your education. You cannot brag about your qualification if your education cannot make any impact in your life and the life of the society. So for me, what matters to me is to make positive impact in my own life and my family and that of society. If I cannot make impact, if I can make positive impact in my life and without that of the society, still not for me, that doesn't matter to me. That's a tough one because I wish I would not die today because I really want to see something. My pride as a father is my son. That I want to be with him to ensure that he goes through life and become a successful person that I will look at one day and say, you know what, son, you have done it. So if I should die now without having that achievement, I definitely regret that. But again, also too, my son is a reflection of every child in this country. So if I die today without creating or advocating for an environment where your child will go to school without fear of being abused or being exploited by any person, still now I have not achieved my goals. That I will not regret as well. You know, something happens to me some time ago and up to now I can't forget it. This was in 2007. I was going to Nyersanya. From Farafenye, I was not with an office vehicle, I was on trek. So I joined commercial vehicle from Farafenye. So we were living in the outskirts of Farafenye. I saw a group of young children running towards school, but one of them caught my attention. This was a child, a boy, running on the tar road. You know how hot it could be, barefooted. I could not lead that vehicle to get shoes for that child, and up to now I feel like I should have just dropped off that vehicle and ensure that that child has something to wear to school. So for me, I don't want to die without having to propagate, to ensure that this country, every child in this country, every parent in this country will be assured that the well-being of their children is guaranteed. Well, basically, I think the issue of curiosity, the way I was brought up also to, I was more like brought up in a very reserved environment. You know, the Akos, they are quite preserved. They don't get into, they are not too nosy into people's issue. And as a result of that, that kind of like have affected the level of, you know, curiosity. That is to say, you know, something that does not affect me that much, I should not be too curious about it. That the only time I feel curiosity is about something is when I want to eager to get something fully well in relation to what I do. That I'm curious to know so many things in relation to my job, but curiosity about personal relationship, I don't, right? But again, also too, it's not about curiosity for me. It's about having a critical mind about things. So I'm always critical about my environment. I'm always critical about things I do. That's why most of the time when I speak, I'm quite convinced what I have said is the right thing. It's the cornerstone for anyone's development. I used to be bothered when I'm being criticized, especially negatively. Well, maybe you might want to participate negatively. But you know, my mother has always been a sense of inspiration to me. And I remember she said to me once of a time, Lamin, if you are not being criticized, whether positively or negatively, get to your room, lock yourself up and cry, and just tell yourself you are nobody. That unless and until people criticize you, then you know that you are actually what the salt. And she will always make reflection to say, that madman on the street who criticizes the person. Because nobody has the time for that person. But you have been criticized because you are something. If you are talked about, you will because you are something. So for me, yes, to a greater extent, criticism makes my life. And most often those who know me, like even when you look at my colleague, my people that I interacted more, these are people that has always inspired me. You talked about the people like Jundu Drame, people like Sirif Boya, my friends. You criticize me, sometimes I build up kind of like a resistance to it, but then I then go back, I do a proper reflection and come back to you and say, thank you, you've done something. And for me, this is what I do all the time. And I always will tell people, I am not going to assure you the best because I can give you the best. I'm not going to always give you anything like next to perfection because I can't do it. I'm not perfect. I can't give you anything perfect. So for me, is I'll do the imperfect, right? And you help me through criticism to make it better. And you know, there's what we call positive criticism, and there is what we call mere criticism. The job I'm currently doing, I looked at what is more relevant around criticism. Sometimes if we criticize for the sake of criticizing, I feel like, okay, what relevance does it have? Because for me, the key word is relevance. What you criticize is of relevant to what I am doing or not. If it's not, I don't give it a value. But for me, I think criticism is part and parcel of life. You can't make it if you are not being criticized. Life is a journey, and it has hurdles that we must able to prepare our mindset, and it doesn't regardless of where you come from. I come from one of, maybe we could say, from a very poor background, but because I know it was a journey, that this journey was not going to be a small ride, that one fine day every person you see wants to be someone in the future. How would I be that doctor? How would I be Lamin Fatty with PhD? It's good getting the mindset ready for the journey. And I always reflect on the fact that you can never make it in life when you don't have the guts, when you don't have the ability, when you don't have the discipline. Because for me, the key word is even discipline. That life cannot be complete without discipline. No matter whatever you have, if you don't have discipline, you could not grow. And that's why always the word of Yah will say, "Alebulo home set." Like Khalifa. So I learned to have my loho set to deal with my elders. And I think most of the things I have in life today is that I always serve people. And up to now, sometimes people look at you are the director, but I still will wash my car in the office. I still do the normal cleaning that I'm supposed to do. But to cover it up all, always be a person. And if I say person, always be that humble of a person. And always help those who cannot afford it.
Humility, you've mentioned, very important.
So this is where I feel pleasure, and that comes kind of like being fulfilled when I come to you and provide something for you in secret. And I can see that you appreciate that something in secret than doing it in public. So life, as I said, always reflect on this. It's a gold dust.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right.